This was a bit of a mission to film this. Every time I switch on the camera, something happens. So yeah, let's get started. This is the 6 surprising things about Australia. Number 1, it looks very much like a mix of America and the UK. So the plantation was more like America. The trees, the palm trees, the beaches were more like America. The wildlife, obviously not kangaroos, but crocodiles, spiders, snakes, these kind of things are all found in America rather than the UK. The streets and the architecture were generally British. I had a very British feel from it. They actually drive on the left side, which is like the UK. Their plugs are completely different to what I expected. They're like American, but like this. It's really weird. So I did not have an adapter for that. I had to borrow my friend's. The nature, oh my goodness, is incredible. Like, I've been to quite a few parts of America. Australia's on a different level. Number 2, before going to Australia, so many people told me it's racist, they drink too much, this, all these negative things. There are a lot of foreigners in Sydney in particular. I spent most of my time with people who grew up in Australia but originally are not from Australia, although I did meet quite a few Australians as well, because obviously the people who were raised in Australia but not born there still picked up the culture and things like that and the way of life, the mentality, I guess, of the country. What I can say generally, I found that they're very, very Americanized. That surprised me quite a lot. I was expecting them to be more British. Like, they do have the British drinking culture for sure, but their mentality is more American, I would say. The foreigners, well, they're actually Australian. Because their parents were from abroad, then they had a slightly different outlook on things. I hope I'm explaining this okay. So yeah, I found people generally very, very friendly in Australia. Like the Americans, like, you know, the Americans go, hey, how are you? Have a good day, that kind of thing, which doesn't happen as much in the UK, although it does happen. In America, you know, they're more open with their feelings and things like that. But yeah, there's one thing I did notice when I was out in public, and this is, I think, a British thing. It's like the Scottish, actually. The Scottish are very, very friendly, but then they can turn like aggressive very quickly. And I found that with Australians as well. I did hear this before, but I saw it, and that was really scary because in one scenario in particular, anyway, I don't want to go into it, but it would just, you know, somebody asked somebody else to move out the way, and the guy said, I can't do the Australian accent, you don't know, mate, and anyway, he didn't, like, the guy was just being like saying, oh, you're in the way kind of thing, and he was gonna like kill him. I was like, it just got aggressive. I saw this a few times, and I think they get it from the British heritage, to be honest. Number 3, as we all know, they are in the southern hemisphere, so when we're having our summers, they're getting their winter. I was there during their winter. What I noticed, particularly in the southern part of Australia, is that their winters were like our British summers. I was calling home or checking on the internet the temperature there in Australia and here in the UK. It was practically the same. It was like 15 degrees, maybe some rain, overcast, sunny. It got up to 21 degrees, and I was like, what? We're getting the same temperatures. So that was bizarre for me. And now we're getting better weather in the UK. The temperatures have suddenly rose, and wow, that's great. So their summers must be really, really hot, hence the scary wildlife. Number 4. Now, this is just my personal observation. From the TV that I watched, like the adverts, walking around the city and, you know, the billboards and stuff like that, and just the way people's mentality was that I saw, I found them very, very obsessed with germs and cleanliness and get your flu jab, get this, get that, wash your hands, oh, if you cough, you know, it was just OTT. I mean, we have that in the UK, but I've never seen it quite so much as it was in Australia. I don't know what that was all about, but it was very, very OCD. Also, apparently like 90% of people take up vaccinations that the government gives, flu vaccines or whatever it is. There's so many different vaccines they're giving it now, and that's a huge percentage. In other countries it's much, much lower, and this came from a doctor that I knew, so that shocked me. Number 5. So as we all know, the Australians love their sport, but what I didn't know is that they have their own version of football. It kind of reminds me of American football. They call it Aussie football, and I actually saw them playing it on the beach. To me, it just looked like American football, but my friend was trying to point out the differences. Yeah, because the ball is like, you know, rugby ball basically. Yeah, and they're big into their cricket, as you know, and their football, their normal soccer. Number 6. It is compulsory to vote in Australia, and that has been the case since 1984. Actually, it was before that for Australians, but then for the Aboriginal people, by 1984, everybody had to. It was mandatory. Now, many people are not happy with this, particularly academics, because people are not so clued up, I think, on politics in Australia from what I've gathered and from the people I've spoken to. Yeah, people are just voting without understanding who and what they're voting for. So I only touched the surface with this. I didn't even know this was a thing before going to Australia. I mean, the people I spoke to argued they're following the American ways. People are not so aware. I don't know, I'm not too sure. So yeah, there are many other things I could talk about to do with Australia, but they are the main 6 things that I came across that really did surprise me. There is one thing I need to add in here. Okay, you know when you're at the airport and you have to go through the normal body scanners, but sometimes the machine randomly selects certain people to go in the bigger machine, like the big radiation machine. You cannot opt out of that. In America you can, in the UK, in most places you can opt out, but in Australia you cannot. And I got selected, and then I was like, no, sorry, I'm gonna opt out. I don't want to go through that. And they're like, you're not allowed to. You can wait 24 hours if you want and then come back and try again. And I was like, my flight is in 2 hours. Where am I gonna go? Well, I'm just gonna book a new flight to the UK. Yeah. Anyway, I was so furious with that. I was just like, what? And I tried to complain. They're like, oh, they gave me this little slip of paper. Oh, you can complain on there. I was like, ugh. So that was, I can't tell you how annoyed that made me. There's actually a lot of things like that in Australia that just kind of takes away your rights. Like, why should it be compulsory for you to vote? If you don't want to vote, you shouldn't have to. But again, like, that is debatable. Soon they're going to make vaccinations compulsory there, I'm sure. Yeah, and I do want to go back to Australia, but these kind of things really put me off. So I don't know. I will go at some point, and I want to spend a few months there and really like experience all the different cities, the Great Barrier Reef and stuff like that. And actually I would love to go spend time with Aboriginal areas as well. So yes, one day I shall go back, but it's very far away, as you know. Anyway, that was that. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I am the most active on Instagram and then Facebook. It's under Good Thinking TV. I will also be writing blogs on my website, so yeah, do follow me there as well. And yes, subscribe if you would like to see more misunderstood or travel videos, and click that little bell button as well, because you won't get notified otherwise. I have no idea why there's a subscribe button if you need to press the bell, but okay, take care. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.